Well, we've made it to the first full week of July. I want to bring you the latest data here in the Austin metro area. But first, I want to start by saying our thoughts and prayers go out to all those in the hill country that were affected by the devastating flooding. My wife and I personally had to go out to the hill country this Saturday to pick up our two boys from summer camp. We had to drive through Marble Falls and Burnett and Kingsland. And we saw firsthand not only a lot of the devastation in those areas, but also we ourselves ran into a lot of setbacks and had to backtrack to get to the camp just because numerous roads were flooded and impassable. So just knowing that and how bad it was in Kerrville, just know it's going to take the hill country a long time to recover. So continue to think about them, send your thoughts and prayers, and of course, any proceeds if you want to help out local charities in that area. Okay, let's get into the Austin data. We're going to start looking at May because this is the last full month that we have of data in the area. And then I'll show you some of the current stats here. So this is the number of homes in May that sold. Green is the 2025 line, and you can see it's below the last 4 years, just almost neck and neck with last year, but again, just a little lower and then significantly lower from the 3 years before that. If we look at sales volume, this is just the total amount of dollars, again, lower than at any point in the last 4 years. If we look at median sales price, this is kind of where everybody likes to think about. If we look at May, it's not terrible. If I go back to 2023, which is the light blue line right here, we were at 463. We're now at 449. So it's about 14,000. It's not a huge number. Again, a little softer than we've seen over those last 3 years. We've just continued to soften a little bit each year on the median sales price. More importantly, we'll see that the number of sales is going to start to slow down over time. Here's the average sales price. Again, dead even with last year. And then finally, listings. This is the 5-county metro area. We continue to see listings through May. They were still climbing. I'll show you now. I think we're about to peak out. But if we look at that, you can see they typically round off the second half of the year. Months of inventory was also still climbing in May. All right, let's look at Williamson County real quick. This is to the north. Again, pretty neck and neck with last year. Had a little bit stronger May, maybe than they did last year. So that's a good sign. Sales volume, dead even with last year. And median sales price just ever so slightly. 2 years ago, we were at 430 and now we're at 425. So median home price, it's a lot flatter in Williamson County. If you look at this level right here, it's just kind of trudged along in that 420 to 430 range. Average sales price a little lower than the last 2 years. And total listings, though, climbing. So lots of homes for sale in the metro area. And months of inventory will follow suit. Travis County, this is kind of core Austin and the suburbs east and west. Again, sales lower than the last 2 years. Sales volume neck and neck with last year. Data's all the same. Median sales price, again, a little higher than 2023 by $4,000. So again, 530, 553, 534. We're just kind of all in that 20 grand range right there in Travis County. Average sales price a little higher, and that has to do with if you just average the homes, maybe the upper end of homes are the ones selling right now. And so that's keeping them moving. Listings still climbing, and months of inventory still climbing. Finally, Hays County, look at the number of sales. That's just number, not price, but way above what we saw. We had 541 sales in May. If I go back to 2023, we had 453. So we had almost 100 more sales than we had a couple years ago. So sales are up. You have a lot of new construction in Hays County. Sales volume up because of those sales. Median sales price just a little bit below 2023, $391, and in 2023, $395. So basically, it's all just kind of hovering there in Hays County. Average sales price came down just a little bit, but it's above last year. Average was just under 500,000. Total listings still climbing through May, and months of inventory still climbing. All right, let's look at current numbers. So this is the Austin Metro right now. So we have about 5.3 months of inventory. Again, it's balanced, but it's leaning more towards buyers. They're getting a little more of an advantage. Why? Because inventory is high and demand is below average. So you have more homes for sale, fewer buyers in the market. It's going to tilt a little more in the buyer's favor. Really depends where you're looking. And I've said this week over week, but if you look in some parts of the market, I'll look at Southwest Austin 78739, kind of right at the bottom end of MoPac there. We have under 4 months of inventory. Supply is a little bit up and demand's been okay. I wouldn't judge these little drops here that they don't have all the data yet. But I would say, it's a little tighter. It's under 4 months of inventory. But if I go to like 78704, just a few zip codes closer to downtown, they're still tilting heavily into the buyer's favor. So it really depends what part of the market that you're looking in is going to dictate how much sales activity is there. If we look at the number of just total single family homes on the market right now, we may have peaked out in June. We'll see. We've got more listings. It's only the 7th of July. Let's see what happens for the next 3 or 4 weeks. But right now we had 15,600 single family homes for sale. Then now we're at 15.2. So we'll see if it climbs, or have we started to see maybe that peak for this year has started to form. If we look at mortgage rates, we're sitting about 6.75. It's been volatile, but it generally has been coming down over the last couple months. I know last week we had the big bill was passed in Washington. So we'll see what kind of effects, now that the markets are open, meaning stock market, bond market. Let's see what kind of effects that's going to have on those markets. That might dictate a little bit in the next few weeks which way these mortgage rates are going to trend. I'll say this: as much as people talk about the Federal Reserve, they have less of an impact on mortgage rates than the bond market and the stock market. So watch those markets daily. That trend will give you an idea of which way mortgage rates are heading. Finally, speaking of the big, beautiful bill, one of the things they had to wrestle over were called SALT deductions, which is state and local tax deductions. And when most people think of those, they're thinking of the high income tax states like New York and California, New Jersey, for example. But don't forget, property taxes are local taxes. So I learned this last week. So they just put a temporary increase on the SALT deduction from 10,000 up to 40,000. So if you live in Texas and your property taxes on your primary residence are at or above 10,000, you definitely get a deduction below 10,000. You already had that. But now let's say your property taxes are 15,000 or they're 20,000. If you have a more expensive home, more likely if you're over, $500,000 home price, you might have property taxes that exceed $10,000. Well, now you're going to get a deduction on your federal taxes for the next 3 or 4 years. I think it's 4 years through 2029. So pay attention to that. You are getting a little bit of a break on your primary homeowner taxes if you have a more expensive home in Texas for the next 4 years. So we'll see how that plays out, but that could be some good news for your tax bill. If you are a seller right now, again, we're still kind of at peak inventory. And more importantly, now that we've passed July 4th, I can tell you from experience, July and August are typically slower buyer months. Why? Buyers get spread out. They go on vacation. They're not as much in a hurry to buy homes right now unless they have to be in one before a certain date, let's say maybe before school. But they're really pushing up on the tail end of that if a family is trying to get into a school district. So there's very little time left for them. What happens is typically we see buyer demand kind of soften between now and let's say the middle of September. Once everybody's back in town, football season is cranking. The weather typically gets better. The only good news is our weather with all these rains have kept the temperatures down. We're not peaking out at 100 degrees every day. We've been in the 80s and low 90s, which has been kind of refreshing. So anyways, pay attention to that. But I predict if history is a guide, July and August can feel very slow. If you're a buyer right now, that's good news for you. That means some of your competition may be on vacation, giving you a window to bid on these homes before everybody gets back into the market in September. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful. If you want to check out our videos each and every week, you can check out our YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group. Make sure to click that subscribe button. You can follow us there. And of course, if you know somebody looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance here in Austin, we'd love the opportunity to visit with them this week. Anyways, you may be on vacation. We'll see. But hopefully this video was helpful, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Thanks.